The question today for aspiring game designers is, are you a game designer or a game publisher? Publishing is a big step to take, but the reality is it's very difficult for an unknown designer to get a game accepted by a publisher. Publishers get hundreds of submissions a year, or even thousands, and publish a small number of games. Now I'm talking primarily about tabletop games, but it applies also to video games. So many designers are faced with this likelihood: if they don't publish their game themselves, no one will. Fortunately, it's much easier to get a game manufactured than in the past, especially a video game. It's just a bunch of electrons. It's just a file or a set of files. So as a result, I encounter novice designers, aspiring designers, who assume that designers are also publishers. That's not the way it used to be, but it's going that way now. Well, there's a different set of tasks involved in being a publisher. It's not self-publishing that you're doing, it's publishing. And once you take that step of self-publishing, you're no longer a designer, you're a publisher. So what is the difference between a designer's tasks and a publisher's tasks? Let's take a look. What do designers do? They design the games, which involves especially making and modifying prototypes and playtesting, and writing rules or game design documents if it's a video game and they're providing specifications to somebody else to make the software. And then the designers at some point have to approach publishers to persuade the publisher to do the rest, which is this. Publishers raise money to pay everyone, to pay for advertising, to pay for manufacture and distribution. They edit the game during the creation if it's software, or after submission if it's tabletop. They manufacture the game package, which requires a lot of time and oversight for tabletop games, much less for video. They advertise and otherwise promote, especially at conventions and conferences. They establish links with and communicate with interested parties, also often at conventions. They distribute the game to distributors, retailers, and consumers. They do customer service after publishing, which is a real burden, especially for a tabletop game. Zev, who is the Z in Z-Man Games, when faced with the necessity to hire somebody to do his customer service, at that point it was a one-man operation with part-time employees. I think at some point he decided he needed to do something a different way, and of course in the end, for whatever reasons, he sold his company. And the publishers have to pay designers, we hope, and that's all a lot of work, all done by the publisher. Do you want to do all that? Raising money is a big job in itself, whether you use Kickstarter or something else. Self-editing is not as effective as editing by someone else. There's a lot to learn about manufacturing if it's a tabletop game, and a lot can go wrong. If you're using Chinese printers who are cheaper, then you run into big communication problems, delays. I know a guy who did a dice, 12-sided but D6 die as a Kickstarter, and then he looked into Chinese manufacturers. He tried some out. At one point he got somewhat cockeyed dice as a sample, told the manufacturer, don't make these, but they had already produced 180,000, and then hand sanded them to try to get them back so that they were perfectly regular or close to it. Well, they already had a lot of his money. What could he do? Nothing. And of course, you've got to be a business person when you're doing these things. I know that I'm not a business person. Now, it's true that times have changed. Discoverability is a huge problem. If people don't know that your game exists, then they can't very well buy it, can they? There are far too many games being published. And even if someone else publishes your game, you should be doing some publisher tasks. Promoting the game via social media, blogs, etc. Being involved in the funding if it's crowdfunding. Supporting the game after publication, answering questions, and so on places like Board Game Geek. Now you could decide to give your game away. Say make a print and play version. Even then you have to deal with acquiring the art and so on. It's not that simple. And so you could avoid some of the publisher duties, but you won't make money. Another alternative is print on demand, such as at thegamecrafter.com. And of course, people who make video games can just put them on a website and release them, give them away, and that's relatively simple. But it doesn't make money. So, self-publishing can be hard and it takes away from your design time, but you may have no choice. Good luck.